Good morning, everyone. Meteorologist Lindsey Monroe here. Thank you for joining us for another edition of the 13 Weather Academy. I had to have some assistance today. This is my neighbor, Courtney, and we're going to be doing some really fun experiments, and sometimes you just need an extra set of eyes and hands to help you. So she's going to be with me today. We're kind of socially distancing outside on the porch. We really wanted to be out in the backyard, but as you know, it is raining, of course, so we had to access Plan B. Courtney, you worked with Downtown Indy, and you've been working a lot with local leaders, kind of trying to figure out what the next step for downtown is. What's kind of the discussion's been like in looking ahead?
So we're basically trying to stay safe first and foremost. Public safety is our first priority, and so we're just trying to step through those phases and looking at it as a phased approach, just like the mayor and the governor are. And just kind of taking our lead from them. I think we've seen some great leadership, and so we're just relying on them. And I know Dr. Kane is heavily involved in the decisions that we're making, and so we're just trying to stay safe. And hopefully we're able to activate and do events and things semi-normal pretty soon.
Yeah, and you noticed the checkered flag. I pulled out my checkered flag from last May. We're kind of reliving our May memories. Obviously, you're a big race fan. Tell me, Melanie, what are your favorite memories of the 500?
I've had the opportunity for probably 3 or 4 years to be able to work on the pre-race festivities as kind of a production assistant, and so that's pretty spectacular to see several 100,000 people enjoying what you are a part of is super cool, and so it's a rush, and I'm right there when they're singing Back Home and when they start their engines, and it's going to be missed, but it'll be here in August, so I'm excited.
Can't wait for the month of August, and in the meantime, we're wearing our checkered flag because we have it. We're going to utilize a checkered flag for another experiment that we're going to do here in just a little bit. So as everyone just kind of starts joining me and joining Courtney and I for this 13 Weather Academy, I'm going to pull up my Facebook page, so I'll be able to follow along with you. You can ask questions, you can interact with us. And we are going to be doing a couple of projects. As you see, we have some 2 liters. We're going to be making some rain gauges, fitting for what we're dealing with, very fitting. And we're going to be talking about how we can measure snow. And of course, there's no snow, so we're going to make some. So we're just going to have a good time today for the next 45 minutes or so. So I do have this pulled up on here. Please feel free to comment, question, answer any questions that you might have, or we'll answer any questions that you might have. And then we'll just go from there. Danielle says, hey, Court. Is that your friend?
Oh, yeah. Hi, Danny.
Let's see here. Johnny's saying, hey, guys. Kev saying hello from Cicero. It's his first weather class. Really excited for everyone to be joining us today. Amy said she is watching with her son, Channing, who is 9 years old. So we're going to be doing, essentially, projects for kids, but it's something that everybody can enjoy because these are just a couple of things that go into the training to become a certified weather observer, where you actually take measurements and report them into the National Weather Service, and they go in the record books for all of history. So some important stuff that we're going to go over today, and let's get started. So we have a PowerPoint that's going to kind of show us some of the things that we'll be covering today. The first, we're going to learn how to use some weather tools, some that you may have never even heard of today, including a snowboard. This is going to be a new one for me. So we'll talk about weather tools, where you need to put them in your yard to get the best observations and show you how to read them and get some accurate data. We'll also talk about how to use our rain gauges, explain how to measure rainfall, how we measure it as meteorologists, and how that is used to keep records. We're also going to talk about, of course, our snowboards and then how we measure snow depth. There's a couple of ways to do it. We're going to do it the old-fashioned way using the ruler. We're not going to go into the liquid equivalent because that's a lot of math, and I think we're just here to have more fun than do math at this point. So we're going to become trained weather observers today, everybody. Let's start with some of the tools that we're going to use. So let's start with a little show and tell and see if you know what we're kind of talking about here today. So this first one, and I am following along on our Facebook page. I want to hear from you. This is going to be completely interactive. We're just basically going to have a conversation today. So does anybody know what this is? And I think I kind of alluded to it a little bit. This is actually an official tool. Anyone know? Let me see if I can get through here. Everyone's saying good morning. Everyone kind of asking about the snow. Okay, we'll get to the snow eventually. Let's start with the rain. So this is an official rain gauge. You can see that there is a big tube. That is a 4-inch diameter official rain gauge from the National Weather Service. But inside of it, you see a smaller tube. That's how we get our more intricate readings, such as down to the tenths or hundredths place of rainfall. The other one just measures in inches. So this is how we measure how much rain has fallen over a specific period of time. And it's really important that we keep track of what time we're taking this, because that's all going to matter when it goes to what the record books say. So rain gauges are super fun, and this is where we're going to start with our experiments. We're not going to make one that looks like that. That's a little high tech, and it is expensive. So we're going to use something that you might already have around your house, and it's a 2-liter. This is the things that you're going to need. So if you happen to have these, that's great. If you want to just follow along with us as we make these initially, you can go back and rewatch this Weather Academy, and you can make it on your own and with your kids. You need a 2-liter bottle. I prefer a clear one, but any color will really do. You need a ruler or some kind of measuring tool. A tape measure will work as well. You'll need scissors to cut the top off. I noticed that the scissors were a little difficult on their own, so I did use a knife to kind of get the scissors started, and then I cut that top off. So you'll need that. And then I'm using a Sharpie as a marker so we can make our measurements. And then water and rocks in the bottom. Rocks are optional, but we do need some kind of flat base in order to get an accurate measurement. So this is where we'll come back out on camera and we'll kind of do this experiment. So I've already started mine here, and I'm going to let Courtney start hers. So what I've already done is kind of hard to see because of the light. I've already cut off the top, and this is just going to go upside down and then eventually like sitting right inside of it. It should fit right in, and that's going to be our water catcher. So we've got that part done. Perfect.
Okay. Yep.
Now we want there to be some kind of way to measure it. So on these 2 liters, there's kind of a line here where they've connected the cylinder to the bottom of the base. It's kind of already indented. You have that too.
Yep.
So we're going to use that as our starting line because it's nice and flat. In order to get the most accurate measurement, we want the surface to be as flat as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and draw kind of my 0 line on here. Oh, so we were getting some questions about where to actually buy a good rain gauge. We actually have a real one down here collecting water right now, but I'll tell you what, you can get them on Amazon. I saw them for as low as like 12 bucks, and they're all accurate too. So yeah, you don't need to go spend a ton of money to get one of those official rain gauges. But this is more kind of a fun project that the kids can do at home too. So here's my initial line. I'm just going to draw that 0 line up right here. And then I'm going to take a ruler. I'll start it here. And then I'm going to mark a ½ an inch for every, or I'm going to put a mark at every ½ an inch. Okay, there you go. So now I'm just going to go through and label it so we know how it is. In fact, I can come a little closer so you can kind of see what we're doing. So this is my hash marks right here. So this is my 1 inch, my 2 inch, 3, 4, 5. Now, I highly doubt we're going to get up to 5 inches unless you forget to dump your water gauge out in between rain events. But in theory, you know, over the past 48 hours, we've received over 2 inches of rain at Indy, so we could be as high as here, which would be pretty impressive. So now that we have our labels on there, we're going to add some rocks to the bottom. These I literally just got out of the driveway, so you can use any rocks. You don't have to go buy fancy special ones. I was watching a couple of tutorials on how to do this beforehand, and a lot of folks use those small pebbles like in fish tanks. Which would be cool, and it makes it pretty colors as well, but, you know, any old rocks will do. So I want to try to fill this as much as possible so it will take up space so that we can get to that 0 line. Got some twigs there too. Some twigs and some bushes. I did make sure there was no glass.
I know, yeah.
Okay. Might need more water.
Okay. Looks like there's peas in there.
The peas were like something that came out of the tree. I don't know what kind of tree we have in our front yard. Yeah, we're next door neighbors, so we share trees. Okay, so that's pretty lined up, actually. A couple of these out. Might need some more water. So that's going to be our bottom base. As long as your water line is kind of lined up, and I can come show you a little closer. There's my 0 line right here. And then my water's kind of right there at that line. So we'll be able to get kind of a good estimate of when new rainwater goes in. It can start from the bottom, a level bottom, and come back up. And then it's really simple. Now, there are a couple of ways that you can keep this on tightly. Mine, I'm going to just not put any tape or anything around the top, so it's easy to take that top off and then dump out whenever there is rain. So it's not going to be a big issue to redo every time. But I also saw that some folks use tape around the top just to keep it all together. And then some folks use paper clips too. So that's also an option if you want to keep it all together. You can also use something like a popsicle stick if you want to glue that like to the back side of it. And then you can use that as kind of a staple into the ground, so you can like make sure it really doesn't blow away on a high wind event. But yeah, that's essentially it. There's just a few steps that make this happen. And then what will happen here is once the rain falls, it will collect, funnel down into this, and then we'll be able to measure from there on up. So there's a couple things that you need to keep in mind whenever you do put your new rain gauge out in the open, so we can get the most accurate measurement. So if we go back to the PowerPoint, there's a couple things to keep in mind with this, and I am still following along. Oh, Chuck Lofton is watching. Good morning, Chuck. Oh, happy birthday to you, folks who didn't hear yesterday, Chuck's birthday. All right, here's what you need to keep in mind. It needs to be away from structures. So we don't want it to be up close to a building. We don't want it to be near a fence post, especially those solid wood fence posts. That will block the rain if it's coming in from a certain direction. We want to make sure it's kind of out in the open, avoiding trees and any landscaping. And ideally, if we are kind of out where we have a lot more room to work with as far as a big yard, or if you're out in the country, you want this to be kind of stuck up somewhere 2 to 5 feet above the surface. Or if you find there's kind of ridges and valleys in your yard, you'll want to put it up on top of a smaller hill. Just as high as you can get it will give you the most accurate measurement. And then, of course, make sure it's level. You might need to ask Dad to go into the tool chest, find one of those levels, and that way we'll know we're getting a nice, good measurement. So make sure it's leveled off. So that's kind of the ideal placement where you want to put your rain gauge. All right. So this is how you track your rain gauge. We talked about how to measure it accurately, build it to measure accurately, but this is how you actually do it. First, you want to know when the rain's going to happen, so you can make sure that your rain gauge is at that 0 mark before the rain starts. How do you do that? Well, you watch WTHR, of course, our weather forecast, to see when the rain's going to start. And then, before that happens, make sure that water in the bottom is at that 0 line, so we can get the most accurate measurement. When the rain comes to an end, that's when we want to check and see how much water has accumulated in the gauge. If the rain is still going on from the day before, it might be wise to go ahead and dump it out. Say you check it at 7 o'clock in the morning, dump it out, restart it, and then you can just add the rainfall from the day before to your new rainfall, so you can get a 2-day total. The empty, and then you want to empty all your water and refill it to that 0 line. So we just want to make sure we're starting fresh. We don't want to make sure any old rain is accumulating in there and it's giving us kind of a bad measurement. So kind of a day-to-day thing. We want to make sure we're cleaning this out, and that way we can get the most accurate as possible reading them out. And we did that. If we can come back on camera for a second. Oh, here's the old rain gauge that we have out here. Yesterday, I mean, it had been a couple days because you were out of town this weekend. I think we had about 3.5 inches in this yesterday from a rainfall total over the weekend. So we did empty it back out, and now it looks like we're measuring a couple tenths of an inch. So each one of those is a tenth. Yeah. So a couple tenths of an inch overnight. Obviously, the rain we had this weekend was a little heavier.
Yeah. And that was an Amazon purchase. I think it was like $7.
Look at those cute little letters. It works. It works. Numbers, letters. I was thinking like lettering, like the handwriting.
Yeah.
You know what I meant. And then you can keep track, because I know that we just got plants this weekend.
Yes.
We just put some fresh flowers out, so it's wise just to kind of know how much water your landscaping is getting with that. All right. Ugh. We'll have to move it back out under the awning here a little bit. Okay, so now that we know how to measure rainfall and record it, you can actually make a little logbook yourself just using a notebook, kind of writing down what day of the week it is, going out and checking your rain gauge, seeing how much you measured, and then just keeping track. And that way you can get some local, really local, hyper-local information for your own backyard just to see how much rain you have accumulated. And so far this month, here in Indianapolis, we're running about 1 inch below average. But places like Chicago, not too far away from us, just broke an all-time record for rainfall. And there are places up in Michigan that received over 3 inches of rain in the past few days, just shattering daily rainfall records. So that's not too far away. And just having a way to measure that, just having a way to just know how much liquid is in your yard, it really does make a difference. It's just a fun thing to keep track of, so you know what to expect kind of if you're above or below average for the season. So that is how we observe rainfall. Pretty simple.
I love it.
Not a lot to it. And you got your own little handy rain gauge right here. We're going to move on to how we measure snow.
Oh, yay.
So let's go to this. How to measure snow. Now, this was new to me, and I learned all about this from Kelly Green. She is an official CoCoRaHS observer. And you might be wondering, CoCoRaHS? It stands for Community Collective Observations of Rain, Hail, and Snow. It's kind of a long acronym, but we have over 100 observation sites here in central Indiana, and they're really trying to collect more. So if this is something, if you're an adult watching, something you want to get involved in, you can just go to that website. After this is over, I'll post a link in the comment section so you can go check out this community network where you can take your measurements and then submit them to the National Weather Service, and we can get more and more data, because the more data we have, the more reports we get in, the better we kind of know how the forecast verified and how the snow or the rain event impacted everybody in the state. So she taught me about this whiteboard, and this is just the way that you do it. It's actually pretty simple. You can see the picture of it there on the right side of the screen. It is just a plank of wood, 1/4 to 1/2 inch thick, and painted white, because we want to make sure it's the same color as the snow. That way the board itself doesn't account for melting or compacting. We want it to be close to the same surface as it would be falling onto the ground. And they size anywhere from 16 to 24 inches. So it doesn't have to be big. It just needs to be kind of a little elevated area so we know that we're getting a pretty accurate measurement. Also, if you want to put a flag out in your yard, because sometimes we get big events, we have the flags here. We're going to show you ours. Oh, here we go.
Oh, here we are.
We're going to use a checkered flag, because why not? Look at you. You know the pattern and everything. That was impressive. Woo! That's awesome. So, yeah, we're going to use a checkered flag for ours, because why not? And you need a nice open area. We kind of just talked about where you want to put your rain gauge. Kind of the same deal for the snowboard, except it doesn't have to be up on a fence post or anything like that. It is recommended that you do put it up if there's kind of those valleys and ridges in your yard. Put it up on a little hill if possible, kind of the highest elevation. But just a nice open area, that way that snowfall total is not impacted by things like trees and landscapings, or perhaps any fences or buildings that are close by. So that is where you want to use your snowboard.
Your ruler.
The ruler. The ruler is also something you're going to need. So we need to make some snow, right?
Yeah.
'Cause we got a ton of rain, but as far as the snow goes, we do not. So I think there's another graphic here before we move on, describing, so this is how we're going to measure snow, but we're going to make it after we learn how to measure it. First thing you want to do when the snow stops is take that measurement. The sooner the better, because if temperatures happen to rise a degree or two after a snow event happens, we do not want any snow to melt or compact. If it's a very wet snow, temperatures are close to freezing, it could start to compact itself, and that's going to give us a lower total than what actually fell from the sky. So important to take it as soon as possible. You'll want to clear off the snowboard to prepare for new snow. So once you get your measurement, you'll want to make sure that's out of there in order to get a new, fresh essentially measurement every time that it does snow. Also note your location. If you are an official observer of the snowfall, the National Weather Service and the Cocoa Ross folks really want to know your exact latitude and longitude. Sometimes an address works, but they really want you to be super specific, even if it's out in your backyard. A latitude and longitude is really important. And then once you report that snowfall measurement to WTHR, we would love to hear from you, of course, all of your observations, or the National Weather Service. That snowfall report will actually be put into a database, and it'll be able to be geographically located exactly where your snowfall board was. So that's kind of a cool thing to do. And I know there are apps on iPhones that will give you a latitude and longitude of your exact location. So that is what we want to do once we measure our snowfall. And if you notice the guy in the picture, he's kind of standing up and looking down at an angle. I meant to grab the other picture from the Weather Service, but this was an example of what not to do. Because you want to be at eye level. You don't want to look at your measurement from an angle and potentially be reading a higher or lower value. So you want to actually squat down there, get down right where the snow hits your ruler or your yardstick, meter stick, whatever you have, and get a really eye-to-eye level measurement, and that's going to be the most accurate. All right. We're going to make some snow now, then we're going to talk about how we can measure this. Just kind of look into the comments here. I had some folks playing along with us, making the rain gauge. That's so awesome. Let me see here. Who said they made their rain gauge with us? Johnny and Laura. Thank you. I hope yours turned out well. I'm actually kind of excited about this. I'm going to put it in my backyard. Okay, so our next thing to do is to make the snow. Now, there is a graphic I want to pop up real fast. It's the next one, and it's going to tell us the ingredients that we need to make this. Doesn't that look pretty good?
It does.
A lot of people use this compound to make snow for their winter Christmas displays. That way it's not going to melt. They can put it in their house, and it actually kind of smells good because it's hair conditioner. It is soap, and then just baking soda. Two things we use to clean. So there you go. Part hair conditioner, we want to use a white or like a clear color so that the snow doesn't become tinted to whatever color the hair conditioner is. And you want to mix it 6 parts baking soda, 1 part hair conditioner. We can do this in any combination. So the example that I picked out that we're going to use today, just because we have a pretty big baking sheet, we want to be able to measure it, is I'm going to put in 3 cups of baking soda and a 1/2 cup of hair conditioner, mix it together in a bowl. You can either spread it out on a baking sheet if you want to have your kids play with it, or you can just mix it in the bowl, and then what we're going to use it today is just kind of in this Pyrex baking dish. Here's a towel you can wipe that out with.
Okay.
So pretty simple, just 2 ingredients. And also, if you're mixing it together and you notice it's more liquidy, just add a little baking soda to it. If you notice it's too powdery, go ahead and add some more of that conditioner and get it really mixed up. So there's a lot of different ways to do it, and it's pretty easy to not screw it up. So we're going to try it right now.
Good.
Okay. I'm like, have my ruler ready to go. Measure.
How many cups do you do? 3?
I'm going to do 3. Yeah. So this is just basic measuring cup, and this is just, what is that, 9 by 16? No, it's not that big.
No, it's probably.
I don't bake, so that was a gift from my
like
mom.
8 by 6 or something.
Oh, that sounds about right. So just any standard baking dish works. You should have some of this in your cabinet if you're a normal cooker. I did not.
Or a banana bread maker during this quarantine, which I am.
If you found a newfound hobby of baking. So that's 2 cups. And this is a lot. Like, I would say you would probably use maybe, if you're just playing around with it at home with the kids, just doing a little hands-on experiment, probably 1 cup of this and maybe a 1/4 teaspoon of the hair conditioner would be sufficient. This is a lot, but we want to be able to measure it, so. Glad I got the big box. Amy said that, or Channing, our 9-year-old watching says that they made snow using a weather kit that they had, but they had different instructions on how they did it. There are several ways to do this. I saw a couple. Some used cornstarch, and then some used like dish soap. it's all essentially the same compound. You have your powder and then some kind of liquidy, sudsy something that would hold it and bind it together. So yeah, you probably did see a different way to do it, but we're gonna try this, see if it works. You're supposed to use your hands. That's the fun part. It's called hands-on.
Okay.
Hands-on. So I think it's a half cup of this. Oh. I see what you mean by getting the...
Please hold.
We're going to improvise real fast. Like a spatula. That would work. I'm actually really looking forward to making this now. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. And that's it. Yeah, 2 ingredients makes this a pretty easy little project. Okay, let's do a spatula, and then we'll use a spoon to stir it up. What do you think? Hands in?
Let's do it.
All right.
You should try first.
Yeah, I'll do it. Smells good, though.
Yeah. It's so pretty.
It does look like snow, doesn't
I
it?
know.
Is it heavy? We can set it down. Okay. Just give it a big stir. It actually feels like snow. Like,
That's funny.
yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's fun.
And in theory, when I found this little recipe to make this snow, it gives you enough quantities to measure out snowmen.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's like, if you want to make 3 snowmen, this is the combination of ingredients to use. I'm like, I want to
We should make one.
make some. Oh, yeah, we will. Then we'll measure him.
Yes.
So this actually turned out pretty good consistency. I used 3 cups of baking soda and then ½ a cup of the conditioner, and it actually kind of is binding pretty well. Okay. Twig. See if it holds together. If not, we can add some more
Yeah, what do you add? Conditioner, probably?
conditioner. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So I got a snowball. That can be the base of the snowman. They probably could use a little more conditioner, honestly, just to get it a little more bindy.
Yeah. So cool, though.
Okay. Use your hands is what everyone's saying on our... Look. I didn't know how messy it was going to be. This is kind of a first attempt. We're playing along right there with you. But this is fun to do with the kids, especially, you know, it's hard to get out there and get an accurate measurement during a snow event just because it is cold and potentially windy and a little dangerous for kids to be outside for an extended amount of time. So this is just kind of a fun way that you can practice measuring snow without actually meeting snow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Bottom. Is everyone enjoying their warmer temperature? Well, the sun did come out a little bit. The rain stopped, which is nice. I can't believe this is working out as good as it is.
Oh my gosh.
And we'll do a little topper. So the whole point of this is we want you to be able to accurately use a measuring tool, and then if you want to report it, just know exactly kind of what you would measure so you can get the accurate snowfall amount for your location. I feel like my hands are getting moisturized during
It's like a spa treatment.
We can make some face masks.
It smells real good.
Okay.
Oh.
Boom.
Nice.
Does everyone see our snowman? He's cute.
Cute.
Okay. Towels.
Okay.
Your towel's behind you.
Oh.
So now that we have our snowman built, we're just going to pretend like he's sitting on that snowboard that we talked about being out in the yard. Again, you do want it to be white, and then just around a ½ inch to a ¼ inch thick, and then anywhere between 16 and 24 inches length by width. That way you can just get a nice sheet of clearance so that everything is as accurate as possible when you use your measurement. And then you want to put the flag.
It's a little small for the flag.
Just in case there's a lot of snow and you lose where your board is, that's what the flag does. It kind of reminds you where it's sitting out in the yard. Could be under a foot of snow, some of the events we've had. So then again, you'll just stick it right down in there, and then you'll get eye level, which I'll do. How tall do you think he is? Don't cheat.
I bet he's 4 inches.
It's exactly 4 inches. Nice.
Accurate reading.
You got it. Yeah, he's exactly 4 inches tall. So that's just another cool project that you can do. And it, of course, gets the kids out, gets them measuring, gets them using measuring tools in order to kind of see how math and using measurements and things like that actually can be used in the real world. So we have rain and snow that we covered today. There's a couple of things that I also want to talk about before we wrap this up and go to our question portion. And that's how you can actually get the information from us to you so that you know what the forecast is going to be, especially since we've had some severe storms lately. We want to make sure that you guys have every tool at your disposal that we can offer you so that you know where you can get your most accurate weather information. There's several ways. You know, we've been from home for the past couple of months, but we still have access to all the same tools. We just use virtually interactive systems that get us into our computers at the station from all of our houses. But if we are in studio, this is what it looks like. You see Angela and Sean there during a severe weather event. Angela's getting latest information from the National Weather Service, and then she's giving that on air as it's coming in real time, while Sean is doing live reporting. So we have a couple of people in studio during big severe weather events. That way, there's someone always bringing you information. On the other side, you see Chuck in our newsroom. He's doing a Facebook Live. So the same platform that we're talking to you on right now is a way that we can bring you severe weather updates in the case that maybe your cable goes out or your satellite goes out during severe weather. We want there to be always another backup option that you can get this information, and you can find that on our WTHR Facebook page most of the time. Let's see here. Oh, yeah, we have our live Doppler 13 mobile storm tracker. This is a really great tool, and you may have seen this. We in a normal Weather Academy setting, usually take this vehicle to our schools that we visit, and the kids can actually go around and see it. On top is a satellite dish, so we can go live from anywhere, even in remote locations because of that satellite technology. And inside of the van, we have live radar. So we have access to all the tools that you actually have at home and what we have in the studio live on the road, so we can bring you those reports if we are close by where a severe storm is. And also you can see on the other side of your screen, that is our live Doppler 13 weather app. It's a free download, and you can see the person there kind of scrolling in. That is a zoom feature on our interactive radar, so you can go right down to where your not only neighborhood is, but your own backyard. You can see the cross streets where you live and see where the rain is moving in and how that could potentially impact you where you live. So that is a free option on our weather app. You can also customize alerts where you can get severe thunderstorm warnings, tornado warnings, the severe weather. You can also get things like the flash flood alerts that we've had in effect that some of us have over the past few days. That information, whether it's dense fog, anything from like that, or the freeze warnings we had a couple weeks ago. All that information can be sent directly to you at any time of day. You can customize that on the 13 weather app. In fact, I have that right now. Sending me some alerts. So the biggest thing we want to tell kids, of course, is this is all fun. We get to do these experiments, and we get to have fun with it, get to learn science kind of hands-on, but ultimately, school is the #1 thing that's going to get you to where you want to go. So obviously stay in school. We want you to learn as much as you can. If you like science, like me, and the kind of path that I was on, you got to do some math, you got to do some physics, maybe a little calculus down the road. But if you want to just have fun with how the world works around you, that is our best advice. So we want to answer some questions now. Feel free to chime in on this chat. It's been a little while since I've heard from anybody, so we are still checking this live. Feel free to write in the comment section, and we'll get to you there and answer some of your questions. But before we get to your questions, we've had some questions sent in from our partners, the Indiana Fever. And they have some good questions too. Yeah, go Fever. Can't wait for basketball to start again. Oh my goodness. So we're going to take some questions from them, but I believe we also have a message from our partners at Citizens Energy as well. You know, I feel like I've been using a lot of water recently, especially now that we have the plants, and if it's not raining, you know, kind of watering them. But it's always good to be mindful kind of how much water we are using. So there's just some pointers that Citizens wants you to remember that keep this in mind for water conservation. Less than 1% of water on Earth is available for drinking. So we know kind of where our water resources come from. They go through that cleansing process, but we just still want to be mindful because it's not one of those resources that's going to be around forever, especially clean drinking water. The average person uses 80 to 100 gallons of water per day. That's pretty staggering statistic. I wonder how much I use in the shower. I've been trying to take shorter showers, but who knows? Try to cut it down as much as possible. The average 8-minute shower uses 20 gallons of water. Oh, wow. There you go. I'm at about 40 probably. Now that I know, I'm going to be more mindful. Our drinking water comes from lakes, rivers, and from underground reservoirs, and bottled water is much more expensive than tap water. I know I got a water purifier when I moved into my new place because my refrigerator doesn't have one of those really convenient things. So I'm always using water from the tap and then purifying it through that filter system. So that's always a good option instead of using bottled water, just to save resources and save some money as well. So thank you for those good tips, Citizens. Now I believe it is question time. So how this is going to work is we have a little video that's attached to our program here, and hopefully we'll be able to answer some of these questions.
Now here's a real slam dunk. What does the weather have to do with potholes?
This is a fun one. I believe we have an explainer graphic on how potholes work and how they are impacted by weather. So we're now into spring season, but we just kind of got out of winter, and a lot of crews out there filling potholes because this is what's been happening. The road tends to weaken as traffic drives along it, and then when we get rainfall on days like today, that rain scoops into where those cracks in the surface are, and they pond underneath of that. Well, if it's cold and we have freezing temperatures, all of that water expands when it freezes, and it elevates that pavement. And then once it melts, we now are left with these cracks in the roads, those elevated areas because of that expansion. And then as cars drive over it, once the temperatures warm back up, that pavement just breaks down because of the traffic that drives over it. You can't avoid traffic. That's what roads exist for. So it's kind of just a patching process. Especially living here in Indiana, we know we go through several freezes and thaws and when it rains. So this is directly related to the weather and the weather patterns that we go through. So we're no stranger to potholes. It's just something that we have to live with, and hopefully we can fix along the way so that we don't do a lot of damage to our tires. Let's get another question from the Indiana Fever.
When the fever hit the court, we hit like a fast-moving tornado. Do you know what they call a tornado that's over water?
Do you know?
It's not a water cyclone, is it?
Close. Waterspout. Waterspout. Yeah, water cyclone. And it's essentially the same thing. Thunderstorms happen over water as well as over land. So when we get tornadoes on land, that's what they pick up. Debris, things like dirt and potentially parts of buildings and trees and branches. So that takes on the color of what it's picking up. The actual tornado itself doesn't really have a color. It's just kind of a storm cloud, but it takes on a dark appearance because of all the stuff and debris that it's lofting. So when it's over water, it's essentially just a water spout. So that's kind of where the name came from. It forms the same way. They can be just as dangerous. If you're on vacation and you see something like that, you don't want to be outside. So heed those warnings, seriously, if you do ever get a vacation back to the beach one day. one day we'll be back there. Promise that. I think we have one more question from the Fever.
You know, our colors are fever red, blue, and gold. But have you ever wondered why clouds are white?
I don't know.
It's a good question.
It is a good
When
question.
I first heard that, I was really impressed by that because I'm like, that's a good one to
Yeah.
explain. So if you think about different levels of clouds, I'm looking up right here and I'm looking at cirrus clouds. Those are the high, thin clouds that usually a lot of sun can shine through. You might even see some blue sky behind it.
Mhm.
Because the clouds are so thin, the sun can actually pass through that, so they give more of a white appearance. Whenever we have rain clouds, like those over there, which the sky, I wish I could show you, good example going on right out here, the darker clouds are thicker and they have a higher moisture content, and that really prevents the sun rays from penetrating through the clouds, so they're reflecting more of that sunlight, so they are going to appear darker. So a lot of it just depends on how thick the cloud is. The high thin clouds that appear white, it's just essentially a fog, or if you think about steam that might come off of the stove, things like that. Whenever we have a lot of light coming through that, that's going to reflect off of those water droplets, and it appears to be brighter. So those are all really fun questions. So I put this out there on our Facebook page. Let's see what time it is here. We're at 10:57, so we have a couple of questions. See, I told you time's gonna fly. We just go right through these. And I'm on the noon show today, so after this,
I'll clean up.
I might just stay out here. I might just play with my snowman. Just hang out where the weather's nice. We're getting a break from the rain today. Johnny Laura says they have a question. Feel free to type in. Amanda asking, how many tornadoes does the U.S. get on average? That's a really good question. It really depends on where you live, because some years are very active, some years are not very active. As far as that exact number, don't know that off the top of my head because it literally changes every year. The averages change. During a tornado outbreak, there's as many as 100-some tornadoes in one day across parts of the Deep South. For Indiana, I believe 20 is our average, and that's for the entire state. That's not just for if you watch WTHR within central Indiana. That's from top to bottom. The average is 20, and most of the time they're an EF1 or an EF0, so they're the lower end tornadoes. It's pretty rare, and it's, I don't know, maybe once every 5 to 10 years that we get a stronger tornado. We think back to Kokomo several years ago, and Henryville back in 2012. That was a large tornado, and kind of equate that to how that plays out over climate records. So it's not all that often, but around average on 20 for Indiana. How much rain a year does Indiana get on average? That's a really good question. I believe right now our average is around 10 inches. If you think about the spring months, they get a lot more. So far in the month of May, we've picked up, I think, 2.95 inches, and we're still 1 inch below average. But so far for the season, we are a little bit above average. We go back all the way to January as far as the snow ratio, the snow liquid melting back down to overall precip. So saying that we're halfway through, probably just a little over 10 inches, probably close to around 20 inches, I would say. But I'll definitely look that up because these are very specific things. I don't want to get them wrong, so I will answer you that. All right. Aubrey wants to know, what do you do when there's a tornado and you are in a one-story house and each room has a window? That's a good question because I actually grew up in a one-story house without a basement. And our go-to places are anywhere as interior as possible. You want to make sure, even though there are windows in most rooms, there are things that don't have windows directly around it, things like closets. That was my go-to place, was my parents' closet, because there were 2 walls from the outside and no windows, and then we could always kind of like barricade ourselves up in blankets and stuff like that. Also, things like linen closets, if you can get into the bottom of that, or like even a bathtub. I know that one side's open, but you can throw like a mattress or something like that over top of you. Even if you don't have a basement, there are some places you can go in a one-story house to stay safe. Where did you go?
We had a basement, so I went in the basement. But here I go into my interior bathroom under my steps.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. So you have like the protection on top and then from the sides. You know, the main things that we want you to keep in mind during severe weather is, yes, the roof could get lofted off, but also these tornadoes can pick up debris. And I've seen this, not in person, but in pictures, where it will take a tree branch or a piece of a fence and it will just launch it through the wall or launch it through a window. So that's why we want you to be as far away from the outside as possible, not because we think your house is going to fall apart or fall on top of you, but because of things that could get penetrated into sidewalls. And of course, breaking glass, they don't want anything to do with it also. Terry asked me, what'd you say, Dale? 2 more questions. All right, I'm getting some comments from my director here, then we'll wrap this up. Question from Terry, how long have I been doing the weather? I graduated Ball State in 2011, and then 2 days later, I started my first job in meteorology over in Terre Haute, Indiana. I worked at the CBS and the Fox affiliate there for 4 years. I was in Memphis for 2 years, and I've been here for 2.5 years. So just shy of a decade. It's weird when I say decade. Yeah. It makes me feel like I've been doing this forever. And I think we've gotten to most of them. Everyone's kind of answering each other's questions on here, so I appreciate the help. Right before we wrap up, I'm going to take this time, if you can show the weather stick.
Oh my gosh, you guys.
So, if you focus your attention behind me, tell us about this.
Okay, so this stick, my dad got for me, but growing up, my grandparents had a farm, and they had a weather stick, and this thing is so dang accurate, it's ridiculous. So it's obviously, when it's not nice, that's what it looks like. And when it's nice, it is all the way up. So it's crazy. So we'll make sure Lindsay takes pictures when it's nice out, and you guys can see what it looks like.
It's like, what is the weather stick doing? And I assume it's low pressure and then high pressure.
Yeah, you would know more than I do. It's a miracle.
I don't know how it knows, but I definitely like that as a background. And now we have our wind chimes going, the wind's picking up. There's so many tools out here. Thank you, Courtney, for letting me hang out on your back porch and doing some experiments. I'm going to post a link to that Coco Ross website that I mentioned a little bit ago, just so you can get some more information if you are interested in becoming an official weather observer and you want to be able to turn in your measurements to the Weather Service and kind of get it into the Indiana records for all time. I'm going to post that information in the comments section after this wraps up. Thank you all for joining us on another edition of the 13 Weather Academy. I hope everyone has a wonderful day. Stay dry.